some of Chavez's programs could have been sustainable if he pursued a sound economic policy.
You said the word of the day! If! That's the whole theme of this. If. But what about is? Question of the day. Would love to hear your feedback. What example would you use if you're an advocate for socialism, for successful long-term socialism? To which country would you point? I'm curious because John Oliver released this video, as we talked about, the Venezuela video here, and he talks about how important it is. And there's nothing new here. It really does. And I really want you to go watch the entire video. What is it, about 19 minutes?
19 minutes.
It's about 19 minutes. I encourage you to watch the entire context. We're going to try to do our best to get to the factual information presented. And there's less and less with each John Oliver video. Let's go, clip A.
Has been hard to keep up with events in Venezuela due to the hurricane of that we've all been dealing with here. Although, if you follow conservative media at all, you may have seen it frequently painted as the inevitable dire consequences of a socialist government. For a case in point, just watch this InfoWars reporter quizzing an extremely chill Bernie Sanders supporter.
Well, you know
Leading
Venezuela,
the witness,
right?
Your Honor.
Heard of it. A majority of the country is currently eating rats while their politicians are drinking champagne on a daily basis. If Bernie Sanders were president, right, and he wanted to bring the same ideas as for socialism into this country,
Why is she dressed like Donald Duck?
do you think that we would benefit?
Yeah.
But I just told you Venezuela is eating rats.
Duck screwed Sailor Moon.
But I just want people to have health care, honey. I don't want, like...
Well,
Same thing Hugo Chavez.
You people have, like, worms in your brain, honestly.
What you do have there is a nice distillation of the current level of political discourse in America. Two people who don't really know what they're talking about, condescending to each other nonsensically until one of them lands a sick burn.
Here's the thing, I actually agree with almost everything he just said, except for the sick burn part. And that's what's important here. We're going to get to the examples, the data, the facts, and all of our sources in a minute. But if you think, I just want free health care, you people have worms in your head, is a sick burn, no facts, data, or analysis thereafter in this piece here can convince you. All right? I just want to make sure, because we just have to, we disagree at that point. By the way, it's a classic straw man where he sits there and talks about two people who have no idea what they're talking about. If it's so lowbrow, why did you choose this example? You could have taken an example of Noam Chomsky and Sam Harris talking about socialism. You could have picked any example. This is what you picked.
Millions of women in this country are going to lose their health care access, not to abortion services, to basic family planning, mammograms. We do not have mammogram machines at our health centers, and we've never stated that we did.
What? It's almost like you don't even care that you're lying. It's almost as though you're a pathological sociopathic serial killer with babies. So before I get to John Oliver's recent video on crisis pregnancy centers, I have a question of the day. Are you pro-life or do you consider yourself pro-choice? Now here's the case. If it's the case that you consider yourself pro-choice, and a lot of people do you still at this point kind of have to acknowledge that the pro-choice activists today are merely pro-abortion? Can we all kind of agree that it's just assumed you're on board with abortion, the kind of laws that you see from the DNC, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you see in Colorado up to 26 weeks? I mean, it's gone a bit around the bend. It's hard to say it's pro-choice with the kind of messaging being pushed out. So John Oliver went on his show today, or not today, sorry, this weekend. This is his latest show, to take aim at volunteer crisis pregnancy centers. Now, if it sounds like it doesn't make sense, well, let's make sense of it.
But tonight, we're going to focus on the exact opposite of an abortion clinic, something called a crisis pregnancy center. Facilities whose primary purpose is to talk women out of terminating a pregnancy. Something they don't often make that clear. Instead, running
like
friendly-looking ads like this.
Yeah, we're starting
Before you make the decision about a pregnancy that comes at a less than perfect time, get jelly on the belly. Come to Sunrise Women's Clinic, a clinic where our nurses specialize in early pregnancy options.
that one. Whatever. Doesn't matter. So hold on a second. I want to make it clear. You have problems with pro-life centers running friendly you find that deceptive? You find that deceptive as opposed to ads from the benign named Planned Parenthood? John Oliver just released another video or segment that has been turned into a video on nuclear waste. Now, here's the deal. I think John Oliver is very funny. I think this segment actually has a lot of funny bits. But John Oliver, I will say this, and we'll get to why he is entirely wrong on nuclear power. As a matter of fact, it's not going nearly as viral as others because most people know that he has no idea as to what he's talking about. But he's gotten so lazy. It's become a formula, and it's easy to pick out where we don't even necessarily have to rebut, a 20-minute segment, because about 65% of it is anecdotal fear-mongering. So he does the same thing here. What he does is he presents a problem, okay? Then he talks about how terrible the problem is, and he ignores the fact that Democrats have created the problem and Republicans tried to fix it for a long time. Then he ignores any solutions, and then he ends with restating how terrible the problem is without offering any solutions. That's the segment. So he does it this time in a way that he believes to be very effective, working on it for weeks, he says, with nuclear energy. Let's roll the first clip.
Nuclear waste, the radioactive and toxic byproducts from making nuclear energy and weapons, is a serious health hazard.
Except it's not. Nuclear power generates less waste than coal, which Oliver's also against. Oil, gas, surprisingly, even less than solar and wind, with solar waste panels creating 300 times the toxic waste per unit of energy that a nuclear power plant would be producing if you compare them. Yeah, so you can say, this is again, they just take statements that are not contextual. They remove the context, say it's a health hazard. Well, at that point, you can say that Cheez-Its are a health hazard because there was a recall in 1975.
Hopper disagrees.
It's not nearly the same health hazard as botulism. Well, maybe there could be botulism on Cheez-Its. I don't know. Let's go to the next clip.
1 out of 3 Americans live within 50 miles of high-level nuclear waste, some of which, like plutonium, is lethally dangerous and will be around for an incredibly long time.
Plutonium-239, for example, has a half-life of about 24,000 years.
It's true, 24,000 years, and that just scratches the surface. It takes 10 half-lives for plutonium to become harmless. So that's 240,000 years.
Wait, is that Al Jazeera?
It is Al Jazeera.
All right, interesting he should use this point, / also Al Jazeera for his fear-mongering, solar energy, okay? Though more expensive and less efficient than nuclear, creates substances which, unlike radioactive isotopes, have actually an infinite half-life. At that point, we're kind of splitting hairs. Infinite half-life, thousands of years, I get it. But coal ash itself carries into the surrounding environment, I quote, 100 times more radiation than a nuclear power plant producing the same amount of energy. Wow. So you can just say something is bad. We get it. We get it. Nobody wants nuclear waste in their backyard. But when you remove the context, you don't actually help anybody. This isn't productive. At a certain point, you're just fear-mongering because that's what you do.
Hate speech and violent misinformation. Hate speech is still widespread.
Wow, you seem like a regular barrel full of laughs. Hate speech, hate speech, hate speech. Regulation, regulation. Try the fish. Ties. My flower squirts water. What an absolute hack. Here's the thing. I find John Oliver funny and dangerously wrong. Yeah. I want to know, people, if I'm alone, do you have entertainers on the completely opposite side of the political spectrum of whom you're a diehard fan? Can you separate the art from the artist? Where does it start to bleed in? Comment below. I want to know. Because this is the latest John Oliver segment, takedown segment, I guess you call it. You know what? Let's just roll the clip and let's get into John Oliver's latest takedown.
Hate speech against Muslims, and especially the Rohingya, flourished on Facebook.
Here we go.
Posted by military leaders and politicians, as well as prominent Buddhist monks like Ashin Waratu.
Okay, here we go. So this whole thing, by the way, this whole video, you watch this segment, there's kind of some jokes that seem sort of irrelevant. He's jumping from topic to topic. It's a lead up. And he's talking about what people hate most, obviously Facebook, right? Then using the old bait and switch to Islamophobia. I was wondering where it would come in. So he goes on to talk about this monk. This is important because we have to give you context how hateful he is, which is true. But is it unique to this one Burmese monk? Are there other people inciting violence on social media? And since we're talking about Islamophobia and Islam, this is what's so important with the John Oliver segments. Yeah. Actually, ISIS successfully spreads more misinformation than any other suspended accounts on Twitter before they get banned. This actually comes from Stanford. The funny thing is, as we repeatedly have mentioned in the past, Facebook does have a legitimate problem with Islamic terrorists inciting violence. But is that the focus of John Oliver's segment? No. The entirety of this segment is ISIS completely withheld. It's about Islamophobia. ISIS gets mentioned, guess how many times? Zero. Not once. Instead, he drones on about this monk's account with less than 400,000 followers. Consider for a moment that Burma's population is 53 million. A Facebook page with 300-something thousand followers is hardly influential. And by the way, Facebook banned it.
Yeah.
So they
did their jobs.
They did their jobs. Here's what's funny. Oliver claims the problem is Facebook giving this monk a platform. But then he plays clips and overlays, and it turns out the monk is actually on the cover of Time magazine and interviewed on 60 Minutes. So Facebook bans the monk, But left-wing print and TV, the media, they're perfectly fine giving him a platform. Again, there's nothing wrong with being critical of the monk. But these are the same people who claim that Charles Murray shouldn't even be allowed to speak or debate at a university because what Murray says is hateful. So why allow this monk on 60 Minutes if his speech is really that dangerous?
Uratu had hundreds of thousands of followers on Facebook, and he used his page to wreak havoc, including spreading false accusations that a Muslim business owner had raped a Buddhist employee, a post that helped instigate riots in the city of Mandalay in 2014, in which 2 people were killed and around 20 others injured. And yet, despite repeated warnings about Uratu, Facebook didn't get around to banning him until earlier this year.
Okay, so this is not becoming more and more clear. He spends 7 minutes making jokes about Facebook, and then again pointing out what most of us hate about Facebook. Now he spends not more than 30 seconds on any single topic. This is what John Oliver does so well. He does this bait and switch where he just bounces around, and then all of a sudden the entirety of the remainder is Islamophobia and hate speech. Like, wait, what was I watching? I thought I was watching a comedy show. He's just talking about the Care Bears. No. It's like Islamophobia, hate speech, Islamophobia for the rest of the video. That's what this is. Islamophobia. There it is.
And if that monk is responsible for people dying, shouldn't we call the cops instead of calling Facebook?
Yeah. You know what? I know whenever rapist in my house, I roll the dice and I give Zuckerberg a ring. John Oliver equates hate speech with inciting violence. And they're two very, very different things. But let's go to the next clip first.
So how the did so much hate speech and violence inciting content stay up for so long? Because it's not like Facebook doesn't have rules. They have a lot of them.
Hate speech. There it is. This is so telling to me. A comedian flippantly using the term hate speech like it's a real thing. I don't know about you, but is this not just bone-chillingly scary to you when a comedian just uses the term hate speech and throws it out there? So we all like there isn't even a debate on the idea of hate speech or restrictions of the First Amendment. They just completely skip past the First Amendment to, well, of course, we all agree it's hate speech, and now how does Facebook enforce hate speech laws? They look to target and censor, and it's something else that's really scary to me. Like you said, he says hate speech and incitement to violence.
Inciting violence.
Two very different things. Equating the two is moving the goalposts in a very dangerous way. All of a sudden, a joke becomes a human rights violation, right, Mike?
Yeah.
Exactly. Right?
I think the only thing that's dangerous is when it incites violence.
People say incitement to violence. It's not like, hey, I can't stand Muslims in Burma, and someone goes, hey, I heard this guy on Facebook says he doesn't like Muslims, so I'm gonna shoot you. You didn't incite violence. Inciting violence is, hey, listen, I will reward you if you go and harm that person. Paying someone to put a hit out on somebody else, or telling people to go forward and actually commit an act of violence proactively. We need to be really clear about what incitement to violence is. Like, hey, punch him in the face for no reason other than he's Canadian. That's a crime.
Hold on.
No.
Is that a thing?
If someone does that, that's a crime.
Is that why you invited me to Texas just to beat me?
All right, Mike.
If someone punches you in the face because I happen to say that I don't like Canadians, and they find out that you are one, that's not my fault.
It's them,
You're not inciting them to violence. It's
them.
Definitely them.
Call me when that does happen, by the way.
Increasingly, they offer free ultrasounds, which can sound appealing. It's free. But often, they're not performing them so much for medical
free healthcare is a problem.
as for emotional manipulation.
All right, as for emotional, here's one thing. When these crisis pregnancy centers offer free alternatives, like women take them. Now, here's why he's so pissed off about ultrasounds and why Planned Parenthood has fought ultrasound laws, right? Study found that 78% of women chose to keep their baby after seeing an ultrasound. Wow. I actually know where my wife volunteers at crisis pregnancy. It's about an 86% rate of women keeping the baby after having an ultrasound. Now, that's not throwing a Bible at their head. It's not Carrie's mom locking them in the closet saying that God's given her zits because he doesn't want her to eat apple pie. It's not radical Christian fundamentalism. This is a study showing that women see a baby, and 78% of them decide that they want to keep
It's literally
their baby.
just reintroducing the humanity that Planned Parenthood
That's
sucked.
It's not an abstract choice anymore. It's an actual person.
And guess what? Without government funding, all they're doing is providing an ultrasound for free. Now, here's one thing we talk often about wanting to provide healthcare to the poorest among us, right? Well, Google free Planned Parenthood ultrasound cost. They don't. Your first appointment alone costs $150. This is what they write when you search it. It says this covers lab work and ultrasound and options counseling. This fee will be subtracted from the cost of your procedure. Our fees start at $585 and increase depending on your gestational. This is their used car salesman pitch. Just Google Planned Parenthood ultrasound cost. Our fees starting. Notice the difference: $150 versus $585. That's where it starts. Again, read Abby Johnson's book because she talks about how much more money they do with the upcharges at Planned Parenthood. They're assuming that you're going in for an abortion.
Yeah.
It's if you call now, we'll make these 5 easy payments only 4 easy payments if you suck your baby down to 2. They right now, this is what's crazy to me about John Oliver. He's literally complaining about people offering free health care voluntarily while Planned Parenthood charges these women they charge them $150, bundling it with abortion for a service that they probably could. You think that woman there made me feel bad? You think she's gonna afford $150 for an ultrasound? We talk about common ground. To you, it's offensive to provide a free ultrasound. I don't think we're going to agree on much.